Also, guys, for those who are interested in getting a shirt, you can send us a DM. We also have caps. I'm going to show you the caps shortly. You can get them in different colors. Different colors, same as the shirt. But this is what it looks like currently. And I'm going to show you the hats in just a minute. Let me know what you guys think. So this is the white hat that goes with the white shirt. There's also brown. All right. And hopefully you guys can see that this is blue, not black, but it also works well with black for those who are interested. All right. So right there again. All right, let's try again with Captain Sutherland. But yeah, in the meanwhile, the hats, and here's the white one again. That goes well with the white shirt. There you go. Looks good, right? Captain Sutherland.
Success.
Can you hear me?
I
Finally.
can hear you loud and clear. Yes, on my
finally welcome
gadget and my third internet. Yes, thanks for having me.
So which gadget finally worked?
My daughter's old iPad that we were going to trade in. But I think what happens is that pretty much all VoIP is blocked here in the UAE, and while I can listen to Instagram live, it looks like I can't take part in a discussion without logging in through a VPN, and this one has a VPN, so I think we're good to go now.
All right. Well, I think Instagram allows us only an hour, so if the hour turns up, we'll just reconnect, because I'm sure the discussion is going to flow into a lot, and then persons will have quite a few questions for you as well. But you know, just to kick it off, thank you again for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you, and I know you have a very heavy background, a very heavy resume, a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge that would love to kind of, you know, get into a little bit of everything in this live, and then the viewers and the pilots and whoever is watching, hopefully they will benefit as they have from the previous interviews with Richie and with Jason Morris and so on. But my first question would be, you know, how are things in the UAE? Seeing that you're with Etihad, that means you'd have been in Abu Dhabi. How are things in Abu Dhabi, especially with the dealing with COVID-19 currently?
Before I get to that, thanks for having me, and just a big up to you as a relatively young person and what you're doing for aviation in Jamaica. You know, it's quite impressive. Thanks on behalf of all of those looking to make it a career.
Thank you.
Here in Abu Dhabi, we are running about 25% of the fleet is operational. The majority of the flights are cargo. I would say on any given day is about 25 flights, maybe 3 or 4 repatriation flights, and the rest are cargo. The majority of the cargo flights are actually passenger planes that are just carrying cargo. None on the upper deck, none on the passenger compartment, but we have gotten approval to carry cargo in the passenger seats with nets and so on. They got the approval. I just saw them today, but we haven't done it yet. One of the things is that with all the downtime, they've refurbished all the interiors. I think they're a little bit wary about damaging the brand new lovely interiors, but if they have to do it, they will. We're going all over the world. We have, on some days, we have 6 flights from China, and they go everywhere. We have taken medical supplies down to Colombia. We have a flight tomorrow going to Havana to take medical supplies. We've been all over Africa, Europe, USA, A lot is going on. A lot is going on. But when I
And
say a lot,
you have been doing some of those flights?
no, I've been, since my last flight, I got back on the 25th of March from LA. And since then, I've done a few simulators. And that's about it.
Yeah.
We have a meeting, a training meeting every week, usually on a Thursday, just to discuss what's going on, what's the best way to keep people sharp and current. And the guys have designed a refresher program, a 4-hour program, to keep guys going. If you don't fly, you go to the simulator every 60 days. If you don't fly, every 60 days maximum, you go to the simulator, you did a refresher program, just to try and keep guys from getting too rusty. But what we're doing is we started out with the guys who were flying. They were basically quarantined to company accommodation. And they'd work for 21 days. They'd do a flight, they'd have at least 2 days off so they can get the test results. Because after every flight, you get tested. And then you'd fly again, depending on the schedule. At the end of the 21 days, you did 14 days quarantine, which was quite rough, just in a one-bedroom place all by yourself or a studio.
For 14
but
days.
What they did, they managed to get that changed now. And you stay for 3 days, your results come in, results negative, and then you go home. But you need to have somewhere at home where, you're not mixing with your kids and so on. So you need to kind of have, a bedroom to yourself and so on. That's what they ask. I mean, nobody is policing you, but that's the plan right now.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
So we're
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, our booking website, I think, is open. Our booking website, I think, is open to take bookings from, I think, middle of June. But as you know, that all depends on, whether other countries will let you in. So it's not just the airline, it's also the government, health authorities.
Understood. All right. Well, sounds good. And it's good to see that you're keeping safe, definitely look healthy, and that you're keeping current as well. So that's good. So for the benefit of the viewers, we wanted to kind of start with your background. As I said to Jason, I made the mistake with Richie to say that, he was Jamaican born. You could never tell that he was not born in Jamaica with the way he loves Jamaica, even more than many Jamaicans currently. So, just to kind of give us a little bit about your background, where you were born, if you were born in Jamaica, which parish, what was the early years of your life like? Which school did you attend? Did you go to university? And then, you kind of pick and choose along the way after that.
All right. Unlike Richie, I was born in Jamaica at which hospital again? UWI. Born at UWI.
Okay.
Spent the first 7 years of my life living at Caymanas Estate. My parents at the time lived with my grandparents. My grandfather worked there, his only job, 52 years, one company. From there we moved to Kingston, and I went to the greatest prep school in the world, St. Hugh's Prep. And I could go on for hours where I said that, but I won't. And then I left St. Hugh's Prep and went to Hero Circle. Of course, there you go.
Okay.
I see a lot of my son in myself. I wasn't as focused in high school as I should have been. Did very well up until third form. And then you kind of, what you want to do, what's the point of doing calculus, what's the point of doing all this history. And I see it in him also. He found his focus and his grades just kept on climbing. And I thought about flying, but the usual rumor and the usual inaccurate information you get is that if you wear glasses, you can't fly. And I started wearing glasses when I was 17, even though, as you see, I don't have them on. They're not that bad. And went to sixth form, spent a little too long there, spent 3 years in sixth form. And then I went to work with NCB. I used to do holiday jobs with NCB, worked there full time for less than a year. And while I was there chatting with my parents and so on, and my father said to me, are you still interested in flying? I said, yes. He says, well, all right, tell you what. There's a lady that I also knew but didn't know the connection, a lady called Donna Darby. She was married to Oscar Darby at the time, who was the acting CEO at Airwing at that point. And he said, well, I can talk to Oscar and, he can give you some information. Sure. So he put me on to now Colonel Darby. And I spoke to him and he said, nothing of the sort. And what he suggested, go and do a medical, see if you pass the medical first, and take it from there. So that's what I did. Medical was fine. Joined the JDF, did it June 15th, 1987. Passed my selection board. And they say, how much time you need? I say, I need 1 month. And they say, okay, 15th July, we expect you to turn up. Spent 12 weeks at Newcastle. Went off to England for Sanders officer training for 11 months. Got back just in time to catch Hurricane Gilbert. Did my ab initio, my flight selection with Trevor Barrett, who is also here at Etihad, and then did relief work for after Hurricane Gilbert, and then went off to Canada for flying school for another 10 and a half, 11 months. Got back. After that, it was Captain 206B Jet Ranger. Then I went to instructor school. I did UH-1H, a Huey Maintenance Test Pilots course in Alabama, Captain 212, and that was it. Along the way, flight commander, assistant operations officer, those kind of appointments. It was the most interesting job I've ever had was in the JDF. It was fantastic. The only issue is,
I just wanted to find out back in your day what it was like. I know you were put on to the Derbies, which assisted you in getting to the JDF. But what was joining the JDF like, especially the Airwing back in those days? Because I think now, as I know it, they take the creme de la creme, the best of the best, to join the Airwing. But what was it like joining the JDF Airwing back in the days?
I'm not sure if it has changed very much. What you do, you have to be an officer, and depending on the shortage, sometimes they will take guys in as officer cadets and do their flying selection before they go off to flying school, or they used to. I don't know if they still do. So you do your officer's course, you do your selection. There's an aptitude test that you have to do, which back then you could do the aptitude test before you joined the JDF. And the failure rate on the aptitude test is extremely high. It has space relations, and all kinds. It was a long time ago, but there were a lot of different components to the aptitude test. Flying school, the selection that we did in the Airwing, while I was there, they have only ever had one person that passed the ab initio selection at the Airwing and then failed in Canada. Only one ever. However, sometimes courses would come up and they don't have somebody to send, and they'd send someone up who hadn't completed it or somebody who hadn't done it, and that's where the failures came in Canada. But it was, if you look at the JDF when I was there, I would say at least 50% of the officers in the JDF who were not in the Airwing joined to fly and didn't make it. So the failure rate is pretty steep.
Wow. Okay. And then it sounds like you did majority of your training overseas before actually coming back home and starting the flying. Is that correct?
Yeah, in Canada, I mean, they do everything in Jamaica. In Canada, we did about 30 hours, if my memory serves me correctly, of primary flight school, where your normal regular flying, stalls, slow flight circuits, that kind of thing. What you probably do in a normal flying school to get you to solar stage, basically. After that, that was about 15 hours. And you do another 15, 20 hours where you fine tune all of that. Then the Canadians that you join with, they go off to Moose Jaw to go do jet training. We stay, at the time it was a Musketeer, then it became a Slingsby, and we do an extended program of about another 90 hours of instrument flying, formation, navigation, cross country, that kind of thing, which is, once you get to that point, you pretty much, once you keep your wits about you, you're okay. The first 30 hours is where most people have the problems. Once that is done, then you hop over to the helicopter school and you do exactly the same again in the 90 hours. The formation, the navigation, instruments, and so on and so forth.
Okay. All right. And then
I hear that
so after the, I'm sorry?
Yeah. No, I was being told that my chin cut off, so I just adjust my screen.
Oh, okay. So what was the flying like in the JDF? You know, after the training and your I guess you'd call it a line pilot now. You're on active duty back home. What was that flying experience like?
From week to week, you didn't know what you were going to do. When I got checked out on the Jet Ranger, we were, as the JDF always is, short of pilots. And they shipped me off to trial. They had a ladies professional golf association golf tournament there. They needed somebody to do filming, emergency medical, VIP transport. So I lived by a lovely little villa on trial property, you know, moving the helicopter down to the driving range in the days and then back up to the villa in the afternoons, flying VIPs around, doing filming for I think it was CBS, can't remember. Taking some beauty shots for them to put in as fillers, and it was great. So that was my first assignment I got. Me, my Jet Ranger, and my brethren Jesse, the engineer who was taking care of the aircraft. But on a normal day-to-day thing, yeah, man, it was good fun. And cook us anything we wanted to eat. It was fantastic. But on a week-to-week basis, when you're in camp, you could be doing VIP transport one day, flying heads of state, GG, Prime Minister, Minister of National Security. You could be supporting the troops. You could be doing training with the troops. You could be supporting the police. The best flying bit, and I'm sure Jace will agree with me, was Operation Buccaneer, which was the anti-narcotics. All over the island, dropping off your teams in weed fields, in the mountains, in the swamps. The flying was fantastic. Sometimes you're sorry for the people who grow in the weed, but you know, it's at work, as
have a job to do.
Yes. And then there's some parts that were very satisfying. You know, you do emergency medical. Most of the time it was picking a patient up from a rural hospital and bringing them into Kingston. And there are a couple that have stuck with me. There was a young lady that fell off a horse on the north coast. Brought her into Kingston, and she was put on an air ambulance because they thought that the growth plate of her leg may have been affected. And found out later that she was fine, you know, so things like that stick with you. On the other side, there was I had one patient that didn't make it, and you keep replaying it over and over in your head. Could I have gone airborne any quicker? Could I have taken a shorter route? But when you go through it, you realize no matter what you had done, even if you had cut 15 minutes off, it wouldn't have made a difference. But every now and again, you're not that you want a thank you, but you get a thank you, and it touches you. You know, there was a soldier that picked off the side of the mountain at Penline Castle. We're up there by Jonker Mountainside one night. And normally there's no way I'd be flying up to that pitch black mountain at night, but he was critical. And he was fine, you know. So that to me was the most satisfying part, was knowing that you played a part in saving someone's life. I mean, you didn't do it, but you're a part of the chain, you know. But
definitely.
The Buccaneer flying in the hills was the best part.
And apart from the Buccaneer flying, what were some of the most challenging times, other than the good times with the Buccaneers, and having those fulfilling moments, playing your part in saving someone's lives? What were some of the most challenging times in the air wing as well?
Sometimes doing missions that you didn't do very often, because we were called upon to do everything. I mean, at one point, Helitours used to do some of the lesser missions, power line patrols and so on for JPS.
Sure.
But you'd be asked to like us asked once, to take an engine out of a boat. Now, the engine is down in the hull of the boat, there's a small area, access area in the boat, and you have to hover above the boat and winch the engine out of the boat. And the boat is in the water and the boat is moving. And you don't really have any proper references to look at. So you get things like that that are quite challenging. Some of the filming was also challenging because you spent, a couple of hours flying sideways, so that they could film every whole. Not like now where they have computer-generated images of the course. You, a lot of the time you have the foundation, but you kind of just have to use your brain and your decision making and make a wise choice.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
So after the JDF Air Wing, how did the airlines come into play? Because the JDF Air Wing, based on your experience, based on Jason Morris's experience, seemed to be some very good flying. But why the transition, and then how did you transition over into the airlines? I think you went to Air Jamaica after that.
Well, eventually, but we'll get to that one. What happens is that, as with most, if not all militaries, the longer you stay in, the more you get promoted, is the less flying you do, and the more paperwork you end up doing. And every year in the JDF, I flew more than the previous year, except for the last year. So I was getting to the point where I was due to be promoted to major. I was actually due to be promoted to major 3 days after I left. And you know that you're going to end up doing more admin. And I wasn't particularly interested in administration at that level. Flight commander, deal with your flight and your soldiers and your crewmen and so on, that's fine. But when you start going up, it just wasn't something that appealed to me. So the transition, Jason and I decided, let's go to Florida. And you probably heard some of this from Jason already, and find a school. So we went all the way down south in Kendall and drove all the way up. I think we got as far as Fort Lauderdale Executive, looking for the cheapest school we could find, basically, because we could already fly. We just need recency and a. We ended up at Gold Coast Aviation that operated out of a 20-foot container. A guy named Bob Acuna was the owner. And our first instructor was a French girl from the Ivory Coast called Christelle Artaud, who may or may not be on the Instagram here now. Funny enough, years later, I think it was 16 years later, if I remember serves correctly, I am at work at Etihad and see her name on a list. And she ended up at Etihad with us both. So the world is a small place. So we did the flying there, needed to build some time, and we needed a cross country. Just digressing a bit here. And we ended up flying down to Key West to build some time in a beat skipper. And we ended up meeting a guy called Freddie Cabanas, who had
I know him very well. Yes.
And and we got
was it that same that yellow? Was it a yellow biplane?
I cannot remember the color. It was two of them, and they used to do banner towing and riding on them. But it was a great experience, and we went back again.
Sorry to cut you, but do you know that he had passed away? I think a few years ago.
Yeah. Yes.
I think he was in Mexico. Yes. He had some difficulties on the plane. Went down because he was doing an air show, I believe. In the pits. I think the aircraft is called the pits.
Yeah, it was in a pits, but I gather he was doing a reconnaissance flight before the air show. It wasn't actually in the air show, but and I don't know if they ever found out what went wrong. But Freddie knew Jamaica very well. Freddie used to fly in and out of Jamaica in the late 70s and into the 80s. He knew Marlborough and Silent Hill and Georges Valley and all those places that no foreigner would know unless they're, involved in agriculture. So,
Definitely.
So, so we did that. Then we went to Skies Air Service, where we got an Aztec. No, was it an Aztec? Yeah. Was it? Can't remember. Yeah, for $135 per hour, including the instructor.
Are you
and we did our
serious?
multi-day. Yes, a guy called Skylar Haratic, who was a real
Okay.
old-fashioned guy who will yell and scream at you if things start going well, and yell and scream at the airplane because there was like a hydraulic pressure problem with the landing gear.
Okay.
So we did that there. Then we came back. All this time I was doing some part-time work with heli tours. Left the JDF full-time in August 96, joined reserves first at January 97. So I was still flying in the JDF up until when I left to come here. So after the JDF, I went to Tropical Airlines, which was a bit of a disaster. Glad for the flight time, but there were some big issues there.
That was a
And then I
Jamaican
jumped
airline?
at, oh yes, working out at Tinson. It was a guy called Donovan Grant who was the owner. And
Oh, what type of
left that
airplanes
as
did they
quickly as I
fly?
could. They had Beech 99s in the beginning, and then they had Beech 1900s after. They had 399s, and then I think they had two 1900s. They did a lot of crew transfers for charter companies and so on.
Okay.
Then joined Air Jamaica Express, flying the Islander.
Yeah.
Then I did my interview with Air Jamaica. I got through, and Air Jamaica said, "Whoa, hold on, stand by," because they were just about to get rid of the 727s and replace them with more 320. So they had to train the 727 guys on the 320s. So since I was at Air Jamaica Express, it was me and John Reed. They said, look, Air Jamaica Express, sister company, keep those two guys until we're ready for them. So I was sitting down for a while, just helping in ops, and they couldn't give me a time, so I flew the Shorts 360 for less than a year, maybe about 7 months or so as first officer. And then over to Air J. Air J was just over a year flying 320, 321, and then the bid came up for 340. Nobody wanted it because it only went to London. It was one plane, it only went to London. But I had a young family, and I said, you know what? I am quite happy getting time off to spend with my young family. That was the best job I've ever had for quality of life, but it was also the most boring. Because I mean, so I used to go to work Sunday, fly to London and come back Tuesday, and that was it for the week. But as far as quality of life, it gave me the quality of life that I needed to spend time with the young kids. So that was good. And as Jason had said, when Etihad started hiring, they only wanted people who had 767 time, 340 time, or 330 time. So anybody who came from Air Jamaica that went to Etihad came off the 340. As a matter of fact, my brethren, Norman Cobran, he came to Etihad after us, and when he applied, they had put him in a whole pool and so on. And when Air Jamaica, I think, they were selling or returning the last 340 to the lessor, they needed somebody to get current to drop it off. So he was one of those people called in, and because he flew the 340, just that one flight, they said, come, you're current, we'll take you. And that helped him to get in.
Very fortunate,
So, you know, aviation has its luck. The luck is always involved at some point.
Definitely. So after, you say you spent like a year and a half at Air Jamaica?
No, man, a year and a half on the 320.
On the 320?
And then I went to the 340. Yes. 320 was from 1999 to 2001. And then the 340 until 2005 when I left and came here.
And you left before everything started crashing down with Air Jamaica?
Yes, it was, as Jason told you, he went to Dubai and he came back. He went on vacation. And I remember distinctly, he said, Martin, there's no reason not to live in Dubai. It's only whether you want to leave where you are. I said, no, man, I'm not going nowhere. I'm not leaving my yard. And when things started to look bad, when Vin Lawrence said, look, here's the new contract, 2 pages to replace the 40-something page collective bargaining agreement. Sign it.
Okay.
We said, look, we're all going to make concessions, but, you know, we need to talk. And he said, no, you have to sign it, or else we don't know if we'll have an airline come Monday. And that was the kind of approach. Then they brought in another gentleman to try and restructure the airline, whose background was banking. And I said, you're bringing a banker. Doesn't matter how bright he is, he doesn't know the business. And those were the 2 things where I said, boy, Jason, and we had a chat. And as he told you, we applied, I think, either end of December or early January. Or Brethren Matthew Dowell, no Brethren, called us and said, you guys still interested? Said, yes. Emirates called, yes. And we did both interviews. And when Etihad said, so if you get the job, which one are you taking? And we said, Etihad, which we did, you know, and no regrets. I mean, it's been good.
Yeah. Okay. What was the experience like over there at Etihad when you just started? It's one of the questions I've asked Richie, asked Jason. How did you deal with the transition from living in a particular culture for many years and then transitioning over to the UAE? What was it like for you? How did you deal with it? I know everybody has their various perspectives, but what was it like for you?
The cultural transition was not as difficult as we had anticipated. My family got here 3 months after I did. And what we found was possibly because the UAE comprises 80% foreigners. So only 20% of the people, who live here are Emirates. So you don't feel like you don't fit in. You feel like you fit in, and people are very helpful. I mean, I was there one of my first days at work, and we're looking to move into somewhere, and met this guy, and we're saying, boy, I don't have this place, we need to get it clean. He said, here's my number. You know, I'll talk to my housekeeper. She's got friends, they can come and clean up for you. You know, and people are very helpful. Yeah, so it getting settled in wasn't difficult. There are a few things that were a little odd, you know, that are just cultural differences. Like you'd go somewhere, myself and my wife Bonnie, and she would speak to someone, and then he would look at me and answer me, and I'm like, you know, but it's a cultural thing, because in some cultures, a man would not speak to your wife in your presence. If she went alone, then he would speak to her. But it's seen as being rude or impolite for him to address my wife, who is a stranger to him, in my presence. So in the beginning, it seems a little odd until I explain it to you that, you know, it's a part of their culture that, you know, and you say, but it has evolved, because that doesn't happen very often anymore. You know, it still happens occasionally. It doesn't happen very often anymore. Schooling it's easier to get into or set into a school here than probably most countries, because the children here are used to children coming and going. Unlike in Jamaica, where you're at a school and very rarely do you find, you don't have a lot of kids coming, or you might have 1 or 2 new kids a year. Here, you know, being a new kid is no big deal, and you'll have children who are there, and they're a part of a group that are assigned to, you know, help out the new kids, help them settle in, help them to get around. So there's no shock in changing schools. The flying was different. Jason and Richie say, you go on a flight, you're going somewhere, and you pass over some airspace, and you're saying, what country is this? And you check your atlas and so on. Okay, this is the same aviation atlas I show you. And it was difficult, and the accents also. Flying in Jamaica, you hear Jamaican accents, Eastern Caribbean, North American, and UK if you fly to London, and very little else. When you're here, and you're going all over the world, and especially when you go into places like India, they speak very quickly. And initially, when you're crossing over the Indian Ocean, it was on an HF radio, which is horrible. You know, lots of static in the background. And one of the biggest challenges was understanding people.
What they're saying.
But after a month or two, you start getting used to accents. But there are always a couple of accents that are challenging. Like for me, the Thai accent, to this day, I have to listen carefully. I find it to understand them on our radio. But the flying gets us to the world.
Definitely. One of the things I wanted to get your perspective on as well is the entry into the airline itself, whether it's Etihad or Air Jamaica or wherever. What would you say is the best way to prepare? Well, first of all, to even find a job. How does one find a job with Etihad or any airline, and then how do they prepare themselves in the event that the airline does call and say, hey, come for an interview? Even as far as a sim, because you are a type rating instructor as well as a type rating examiner, so you would have an idea of what is being looked for. But yeah, what would you say as to one, finding the job, two, preparing for the interview, and then preparing for the job itself as as a pilot, a new pilot getting into the airlines?
There are different ways of finding the job, but basically your best route is online. There are certain websites, Pilot Career Center, the flight safety websites. If you already have a type rating in companies like Park and Richworth, every airline's website will have a hiring page, a careers page. Some of them may have a prompt, most of them don't, where you can sign up and you get a notification when it's open, but most don't. So you just have to basically keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and see what's going on in the market. Of course, as everybody does, you speak to friends. If Etihad starts hiring again, of course, I'll let you know, and you can guys in the club. Getting the job, different airlines have different entry exam and so on. But I think we're fairly standard. You do most airlines will do some kind of a phone interview if they're hiring people from overseas, Skype, Zoom, something like that. And then when you come for the actual simulator assessment, you'll do that. Some airlines, you do that and a little interview, and that's it. A lot of the bigger airlines, you'll do your interview, which will have questions like, give us an example of a time when, you had a difficulty and you had to think out the box, to achieve the goal. You'll have you'll have a technical exam, and you may have one or two technical questions, but basically they're looking at you, the person. You can teach somebody how to fly, but you want to make sure that they have the right personality and the right kind of thought process to fit into your airline. So you have interview, simulator, and the games that Jason mentioned and Richie mentioned, where you have the group exercise.
Yeah.
And those are fun, both doing them and from a flight assessor perspective. The simulators, a lot of people, you can go online and get the study guides for a lot of airlines. For Etihad, that won't really work so well anymore because our simulator scenarios aren't scripted anymore. A lot of airlines have a set script, you know exactly what's coming. Now we've gone to a different way of doing things where the flight crew assessor, we have two assessors assessing each person in the simulator, and you have a program and you select 3 events, no more than one per phase of flight. So it can be 3 events of a list of about 40 or 50. So you can't prepare. We're looking at the person's ability to make decisions, assess the situation and make a good decision. Doesn't have to be the decision that I would make. It just has to be a decision that thought through. Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, it.
And when you were getting ready to enter, how did you yourself prepare back in those days for the interview before knowing all that you know now? What was that like for you?
Well, I probably wouldn't be the best person to go off of. I read up my 340 manuals, made sure that I was up on the systems and the limitations and so on. And that was pretty much it. There wasn't a hell of a lot going on with Etihad. It was a relatively new airline. I had an idea of what kind of questions they would ask, but that was about it. There's a lot more information out there now.
No, yeah, definitely.
If it was 2020, I definitely do far more preparation, than I did back in 2005.
Okay. And how was it for you with dealing with seeing that there's not as much information that was shared back then that would have been available online. How did you take the group games, the what would you call it, the uncommon questioning by the panel, things like that in the interview. I mean, a lot of persons out there are nervous to just even sit a simple multiple choice exam or be interviewed. If you ask a lot of people now, tell me something about yourself. They're going to ask, what do you want to know? Ask the questions, I'll answer, but they're unable to just verbally say, my name is Samuel Neal. 26 years old. I love flying. I love to eat this and that. If I get the chance, these are places I'd love to travel to. This is the type of lifestyle I'd love to live. I'm a person of, I see myself a person of good character. I have integrity as well. Things like that. Persons aren't able to verbalize all of that, especially in front of 4 people with 4 different personalities. So the person on the left have a different facial reaction to the person next to them. And there are 4 different facial reactions to what you are saying, which kind of gives you a hint as to how they're receiving. So a lot of things will throw people off. But as someone who has done it, and maybe you have done it yourself, meaning you have gone through it, but then you have others who you have done it to as well. Before you answer the question, though, the hour is finishing now, the first hour. So we're going to end the live now, and then we're going to come back again and continue the segment. All right?
Okay, yeah, man, no worries.
All right, sounds good. See you in a bit. Captain, are you here? All right, welcome back.
Okay, Sam? Thank
you. Man, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you great. So whenever you're ready, we can go ahead and kind of just give us an insight on the whole, getting through the interview.
The interviews back then at Etihad were still evolving. They're nowhere. Okay. They're not as thorough as they are now. Emirates had already fine-tuned theirs because they were, I think, 18 years old at the time. Etihad was 14, 15 months old, so it was 2 different organizations. But the questions that you get, the flight crew assessors, they start out very easy and they ask questions to put you at ease. They'll ask you, where you, just like what you asked, where you born, your childhood, when did you first get interested in, you have any kids, yeah, you have kids, how does your wife feel about living in the Middle East? So it will be a general chit chat about you to start with, and then they'll get into asking other questions, and they're looking for examples of things that you have done or things that have happened in your life, as Jason had mentioned, they don't want to, suppose you were in this environment, what would you have done? They want an example, tell us about a time where you ended up in a tricky situation while flying, and how did you get, so they'll ask you questions and look for the ones specific examples of things that you have done. And it's good to be fairly open and honest, but of course I would never recommend that if you did something stupid, you'd share it with them.
Definitely, yeah.
But, yeah, but if you did something that got yourself in a little corner and you made a wise decision to extract yourself from it, it could give you good points. So just nothing silly, but just be fairly open and honest.
Okay.
That's probably the best way.
Okay, great. Hopefully persons will take the information and, for those who plan to go to the airlines, to, do well with that advice. But in continuing, I know based on what you have shared with me that you have flown the A330, A340, and now the Boeing 777. Um, I'm curious to know why the switch, because I mean I was about to say that I feel sorry for you having to switch from an Airbus to a Boeing, but if there was ever a Boeing aircraft that I would ever want to fly, it would be the 777 because it's an amazing aircraft. But why the transition? Is it that Etihad had phased out the 330 and the 340, or what happened? Why you transitioned to the Boeing 777?
Yeah, that's primarily it. I was quite happy flying 330 and 340, and
I
Etihad
imagine.
decided that they were going to phase out those two fleets.
Okay.
Actually, one of the nicest flights I've ever done was my last flight on a 340. We
Okay.
flew to a storage facility, and the storage facility is an uncontrolled airport in Spain.
Ah.
So it was
Okay.
IFR, visual approach, follow a river to the airport, overhead, downwind, and it was fantastic. But of course, after you park it there, you feel a bit sad. But
Yeah.
it was a choice of going 320 or going 777. And while
Okay.
a 320 and a 330, the cockpits are almost identical, I
Okay.
am not one who is on my list of priorities. My
Mm-hmm.
family and my lifestyle comes first, and the airplane I
Mm-hmm.
fly comes second.
Definitely.
And the 777, as with most wide-body airplanes, they do longer flights, which means that you
Mm-hmm.
get more time off. When you're gone, you're gone. But when you're home,
Definitely.
you're home. So that
Okay.
was one of the main reasons why. It's
Mm-hmm.
a great airplane. The
Mm-hmm.
systems, the hydraulics, electrics, pressurization systems, and so on, I would
Mm-hmm.
say are better than the Airbuses I flew. They're very smart. You have a problem with your hydraulics, it will close valves to preserve some of your fluid if it's a main hydraulic system. If you have a bleed
Okay.
problem with a bleed leak, it will close valves to try and isolate where the leak is. The
Okay.
systems are very, very good. The
Okay.
Airbus, the user interface and automation is way ahead. So
Okay.
the Airbus for normal operations, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
the user interface and accuracy of the
It's much better.
automation is
Mm-hmm.
superior. The Boeing, the systems, and when you have things go wrong, the electronic checklist and so on is superior. But
Okay.
that's comparing a 777 with a 330 and 340. I don't know
Okay.
about a 380. I think the 380, the electronic checklist is also very good. But that's
Okay.
my take on it. And of course, as an old helicopter pilot, I prefer a side stick, but that's just personal preference. Some people like a yoke, some people like a side stick, but that's just a
Yeah.
personal thing.
Yeah. Definitely. So I know it's one of the questions I believe I asked Richie as well, but I think it's better to ask it in a way that what are some of the places I was going to ask, what are some of the countries and places that you have been to, but I think it's better to ask, you're a pilot, where have you not been to in your time with the airline?
I have not been to most of Africa. I have been
Okay.
to South Africa. I have been to Kenya for
Okay.
work. I haven't spent any time anywhere else in Africa flying. Nigeria, sorry. Nigeria also.
Okay.
So I haven't really explored Africa. The
Mm-hmm.
Far East, Southeast Asia, I've been to a few countries there. Europe, of course, North America, well, most of us Jamaicans with a visa. But Africa is the one continent that I really have not explored, along with the eastern part of Europe. I've never been to anywhere in Eastern Europe. And well, I've flown in and out, but never spent any time there. It's actually, Bonnie and I, that's probably towards the top of our vacation list as soon as this COVID thing quiets down.
Yeah.
Yes.
But when you on your trips as a pilot, have you been able to kind of escape the hotel room every now and again and actually get to explore places?
Yes. I always say, as an airline pilot flying over here, you get to see the world 24 hours at a time. A lot of our layovers are between 24 and 48 hours long, sometimes a little bit less, occasionally one that longer. And you go and you see some sites, and then you go again next month or in a few weeks' time, and you see some more. So a lot of the countries, you tend to see it in parts. You know, you don't get to see a lot of, generally. I mean, there's some times where, especially when you have a new destination, and it's going 2 or 3 times a week, where you get a long time in a country, and you can really get to see the places. When we started Brazil, it was like that. We had 3 or 4 days in Brazil, so we're able to drive from Sao Paulo over to Rio de Janeiro. Bonnie came with me. Went on a bus, 6-hour bus ride with flatbed, like a business class seat and meals and everything. And then, yeah, especially in the early days, the schedule wasn't as tight, and you got a bit more of the layovers. A lot of them were a little bit longer. But yeah, you get, if you want to, and you make the effort, you can see places. If you're lazy and you coop up in your hotel room, then you end up just seeing what room service is all about. Richie?
Gotcha. So one thing I wanted to touch on as well is your experience as a type rating instructor and a type rating examiner. What has that? Is it something that is intertwined into your regular line flying as well, or is it something that you did before, or is it something that you're doing now in the downtime? How does that intertwine into everything?
I started instructing in the JDF. I did my instructor's course in Canada through the JDF. And then when I left the JDF, I didn't teach again until I became a captain on the 340. Let's say there are 3 types of instructors apart from the senior examiners. You have your line trainer, or they call him a nominated commander here, that all you do is line flying with people who are doing their ratings. That job, if you like to fly and that's all you want to do, is a great job, because as far as I'm concerned, any captain who is flying, a part of your job is to impart some knowledge to the guy beside you who is going to be a captain one day, hopefully in the not too future. A type rating instructor is the most difficult job, because you have to teach everything. You'll have a syllabus, like on a 777. I think there are about 6 sessions in the fixed base sim. You have screens set up like a cockpit, and go through your procedures, look at systems, look at your non-normals and so on. So you have to teach all of those. And then in the simulator, you have another 8 or 9 sessions, and you may have to teach all of those. So you have to be up to speed. You have to have your lesson plans done to be able to teach any of those, almost 18 to 20 sessions. Yeah. As an examiner, you're also supposed to be able to do all that a line trainer and a type rating instructor does. But in reality, as an examiner, you tend to do a lot more check rides, line checks, simulator checks, skill tests to issue a new license. And that is an easier job, because you don't have to be redoing all your lesson plans and so on. But it takes a bit more, let's call it moral courage, because you can be flying with somebody or you're doing a check on somebody, you know them, really nice person, but they didn't have a good day.
Pulling, yeah.
And the hardest part of that job is telling somebody, look, you didn't meet the standard. And the way I have found best to cope with that and not go home saying, boy, you know, boy, sorry for Sam, is that I am not checking you. I am writing your performance and measuring it against a standard. So all I am the person who is looking at what you have done and saying, does it fit above that line, on that line, or below that line? And that, so you pass or fail yourself, basically. I just record it. And that's the way I have looked at it. But every now and again, it gets rough when, you know, boy, I know this guy is a good guy and so on, but, you know, it is what it is.
Definitely. Is there a common thing or a common phase of the training that students usually fail at? Is it lack of preparation? Is it maneuvers? You know, is there something common that they struggle with in the training that leads to them failing or going below the standard?
I haven't seen very much of it because I have done only transition training. Guys coming from the 320, 330 or 330, 340. So all those people already had a sound Airbus foundation. Since I've been on the 777, I haven't done a lot of training. I've found it a lot more interesting to train people on the 777 because it's people who only have book knowledge. They haven't, a lot of them have never flown a Boeing airplane before, and I find that more fulfilling than taking somebody from a 320 to a 330. So far, I have not seen a lot of people who have failed. What I find is the biggest challenge, though, is getting the procedures and learning how to manipulate the interface. The MACD in the Airbus and the CDU in the Boeing, because it's the Boeing CDU to input the information into the airplane's FMS is not as intuitive as the Airbus one. And I find guys struggle with that and with the auto flight system of it. But I'm in a better position, I believe, than a Boeing instructor who has flown Boeing all his life, because I still remember the parts that I found challenging. And I can say to the guys, look, do you know why this is happening? And they'll go, not really. I say, okay, let's look at it. And I will target the areas, especially when you're doing line flying with them and you have time in cruise, and I'll ask questions, and a lot of the questions I'll ask are the questions that me and my sim partner, when we're doing our transition, the things that we didn't get initially or we found challenging. But the failure rates are fairly low. The programs are good, very condensed, but the programs are good. So the failure rate is pretty low. If you're prepared to do your work, you'll be all right. Okay.
And for those are interested in getting even over to Etihad, what are the current requirements to get over into the airline?
If we were hiring for a first officer, I don't know what the hourly requirement is. I think it could be either 1,500 or 2,500 hours. I'd have to check it, and you need to have transport time. They won't. Last time I checked, they weren't taking anybody who didn't have at least, say, Embraer 175 times. It has to be something, I think, over 50 tons or 40 tons. I don't remember what it is. But they weren't taking people who had BizJet time. It had to be jet transport time that you had.
So you have to have the hours, and you have to have an ATP as well as time on the ATP as well. It won't take someone with 1,500 hours who was an instructor looking to transition into the airlines type of thing.
No. Most of our recruitment for the last few years has been coming through the cadet pilot program. which for the majority of the life cycle of the cadet pilot program, which Jason was one of the managers who started the program, it has been majority of Emiratis because they're trying to get their own people into the workforce, and the people who are interested in aviation. It's a wonderful opportunity. But from time to time, they do accept people from overseas. They initially started out with family members of current Etihad employees, and then they opened it up. I did a little bit of recruitment for the cadet pilot program when Jason was there. One trip down to went to Australia to recruit. So we have people in the cadet pilot program from all corners of the globe. But when it's open up to international people, it is extremely difficult to get in because you'll have thousands of applications and we may need 20 people. And after you screen and screen, you cut it down and you do all your testing and so on, you may still have 100 people who have passed. And all you can do is keep increasing that pass mark until you're down to 20. And so the people who are unsuccessful, many of them had great grades, but you only needed 20.
20, yeah.
It's rough. It's hard to get it.
Very competitive.
Yes.
Extremely competitive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, especially since our cadet pilot program, in my opinion, financially is one of the better ones because if you are accepted in the program as an international person, a foreigner, and you have a bond that you have to pay back, but you get an allowance while you're in your training. Once you come over to Etihad and you start flying, you fly on a reduced salary. And flying on that reduced salary is the airline's way of recovering what they have spent to train you. So you never ever have to take a penny out of your own pocket. As long as you apply yourself and you're successful, I think the entire bond is written off over 5 years. Jason will probably post something here shortly with home because it hasn't changed. I think it's 5 years that your salary starts at, I don't know, say 50%, and it goes up to 60% the next year, then 70, 80, 90 until you're on full salary.
And they're reducing, so it's almost like a loan within the airline.
Yes, but if you mess up, you owe the airline for the cost of the program.
The training.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that option is open to international students as well?
From time to time, it is open to internationals, but as I said, that door usually opens and closes very quickly. Doesn't stay open for very long.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that looks like a good option for many students as well, those who are looking for that, chance to get into the airline, as I said, they will get in, they'll be trained, or the program will be funded by the airline, but once they do get to the airline, that, it's almost like a loan, they repay every year until the expenses are covered. But that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad program to be in.
Yeah.
But as I said, it's very competitive.
It's just competitive, and it does stay up very long. So Donald is saying it's 5 years is the repayment period where you're working on a reduced salary and it's probate.
Okay,
Donald,
definitely.
Emilio, how you doing?
So what advice would you have to let's just looking at the overall global situation with aviation, especially with the pandemic making it a little bit worse than it was before. What advice would you have to those who want to get into aviation, those who are already into aviation, specifically those who are pilots or want to become pilots? What kind of advice would you give to them now, going in, especially in Jamaica? There's little to nothing going on. There's just corporate aviation that has a little bit of traffic in terms of the general aviation community. There's a Korea company, Tara. The flight schools aren't even up and running as well to even give a little activity. And the other airdromes around the around the island, I should say, is pretty much quiet just the same. So for someone looking to make the best opportunity out of aviation, especially for something that's what they enjoy, it's their passion, what kind of advice would you give to them?
It's a difficult one. The first thing is perseverance and keeping your eyes open to see what options there are. Getting your licenses and ratings and so on. The USA is probably still one of, if not the cheapest place to do it. That's anywhere close to Jamaica. Yeah, other places that may have good prices are probably extremely far, like South Africa and so on. So that would be it. The second thing is any opportunity that you have to fly and build hours, as long as you figure operation is safe, don't turn it down.
Don't turn it.
As my bridge in Robbie, first water you come to wash. Don't turn it down, because you never know when the next door is going to open, and you never know when the doors are going to close. Like right now, everything is shut. It's as people know, aviation is a very fickle industry. We've had SARS, we've had 9/11, we have this now, we have oil prices, and a lot of these things are out of the control of even the best management teams. So it's to get into it, do what you have to do to get your flying done, work whatever jobs you have to work to get your flying done, keep your eyes open for any kind of cadet pilot program that's going. And once you have gotten your flying going and you have your rating, as I say, online, keeping in touch with friends who are working, and any job that you can get, the first one, jump at it. And while I'm all for loyalty, you have to look out for yourself first. So if you get a job today, flying with a small outfit with limited scope, and 3 months later you get a job that has potential to take you to where you want to go to, I understand loyalty, but you have to be able to go into the boss and say, look. And they know, the people who have small operations that fly small airplanes, they know that most pilots that come is a stepping stone. So you need to go and speak to them, don't burn your bridges, and move to the next thing. But always keep your bridges intact, because you never know who
well, you might have to turn back too.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, simple things like, I end up in the simulator doing check rides on people who were senior to me at Air Jamaica, and they treated me quite nicely, I never had an issue. But you never know. You never know what's going to pan out.
Definitely. Another question that I had was, what were some of the challenges that you faced in getting to where you are now? How did you overcome those challenges?
My road was fairly smooth after I got into the JDF. Everything went pretty smoothly. 12 weeks Newcastle, England, back August, off to Canada in the same November, and everything went quite smoothly. Got me jet trained captaincy with minimum hours. Came to Etihad, and I was very fortunate in that I got to Air Jamaica when the 727s disappeared. So I went into the right seat of what was probably the most advanced commercial jetliner at the time, a fly-by-wire 320. I mean, I don't think anything was more, maybe similar as in the 340, but nothing was more advanced. And then when I left and came to Etihad, it was similar systems, so it wasn't a great challenge. It's just application. My road has been relatively smooth, and I hope it will continue that way. You speak to some, you speak to some people who have worked for 6 and 7 and 8 different airlines in their lives, and I like stability. I'm not a thrill seeker and looking for the next adventure like some people. I like going out. I like being outdoors, but I I like my stability, my space. You know, I have no desire to, let me go to work in China and all right, enough of China. Let me see if I get a job down in Africa. I'm not one of those people.
I agree.
It's been smooth. Fingers crossed. You know.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So somebody had asked me earlier to ask you the question, you know, what it was like working for one of the largest, or if not the largest, Middle East airline.
Oh no, we're the third largest.
Third
Third
largest now.
largest.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, the largest is Emirates. Qatar is second largest. We're third. Never got higher
Okay.
than third. It's in the beginning, it was very comfortable, and that's one of the reasons why Jason and I came here. Is we liked Abu Dhabi first of all, as opposed to Dubai. Abu Dhabi was quiet and slow moving. Dubai was very congested at the time. Road infrastructure in Dubai has improved, and it's easier to move around now. And when we
Okay.
came to Etihad, they had, I don't want to get the number wrong, it was about 7 airplanes.
Okay.
It was smaller than Air Jamaica, less than half the size of Air Jamaica, with big plans. When we had our chat on the phone, this was early 2005, and we were told 50 airplanes by 2010. And we had 50 airplanes by 2010. It was very exciting. It was a case where you'd hear them come up with a new little slogan, you know, 36 destinations in 36 months. And that's how it was. 36 months after Etihad first flew, flying to 36 destinations. So it was happening quickly.
Growth.
It was exciting. Yes, and when it was smaller, one of the things is, and it still applies to some extent because I've been here for a while, is that you could speak to somebody in the office with a suggestion or drop them an email and they would get back to you and they say, hey, good idea, oh, this can't really work. And it was an environment that was like what you would have at home, you know, where you knew people, you could talk to them, you could make your input, they listen, they keep it or throw it away depending on whether it can work or not. And you went to work, you'd see a lot of the same people every now and again. Not like back home where you saw the same people all the time, which in itself is a nice comfort when you see the same people all the time and you know who wants to go out and eat, who wants to party. Grew, it became a lot less family-like, became like any other large company.
Airline.
The communication is fantastic. They keep you updated about everything.
Okay.
The flying becomes more varied. The plus side is you get to see more places. The negative side is that you don't get to go back to the places that you really like as often as you used to. And you don't get to see your when I say friends, the crew, the first officers and the cabin crew that you fly with a few times. You go on a layover, you go eat, you go sightseeing, and you kind of get to know them a bit, and then you don't see them for 4 or 5 years. So that is just because it's big. You know, it's because it's big. At one point we had 2,200, 2,300 pilots. So, you know, it was quite common to see somebody and never see them again.
Okay. That's okay. the airline life. Another thing that I wanted to ask, separate and apart from, you know, your job experience and stuff, a lot of Jamaican pilots are known to be over the Middle East, have gone through a similar transition from the JADF to Air Jamaica, and then, you know, once Air Jamaica started crumbling, everybody started venturing in the East. Is there a network that you guys have over there in the Middle East as Jamaican pilots or Jamaican what should I say? You know, well, pilots, cabin crew, mechanics, all of that over there in the Middle East that you guys just have a network. Not factoring where you are, but you know, either utilizing social media, emails, or a WhatsApp group. And the reason why I ask is that for persons who are looking to have a similar transition, and of course, there's benefit in having a network to fall back on to help be guided accordingly. Is that network available, or is it a case where, just as how it is now? I know Richie Cunningham, and then Richie put me on to Jason, and then Jason or Richie would put me on to you as well, and then Jason would mention somebody else, and then you yourself would mention somebody else. Is that how really the network is, or is there an actual, a group dedicated to the Jamaican, aviators or aviation professionals in the Middle East?
It works pretty much what you said is how it works generally. Somebody puts you onto somebody who puts you onto somebody. However, when I came here, there was an email database that was kept by, I tried to keep it, and it was one of the ladies in Dubai who ended up keeping it. There are a couple of Facebook groups, and there's a Jamaica Middle East diaspora that was started a few years ago. So if you need any official information about, diplomatic stuff and so on, you get onto the JMed, and they've got two WhatsApp groups. There's one where people discuss things, and then there's a notice board. The notice board is only if there's anything that is of importance. If something changes, Ministry of Foreign Affairs posted something or something of importance in the Gleaner Observer, they'll post it there. So any information that you really want, if you post it on the notice board, or you call the president or treasurer, they'll be able to help you. So that's probably the most official channel that we have. But most things, day-to-day things, I need to get a driver's license. They tell you, but usually just phone a friend who has been here, before you got here. Plus, if you are with Etihad, and I assume Emirates is the same, our company website has all those processes in there. But for us to make a link, people tend to have their own little groups, and there is one event every year that I look forward to. It's on Good Friday. It used to be hosted at a home. Richie and Daniel, different Richie, they used to host at their house, and it got so big that I know it's been held in a park, it's been held in a community center, and it's really, really nice. It's
and that's in the UAE?
They'll coordinate it, and they'll say, okay, Sam, you come in, and there'll be a long list, and you'll say, all right, I can bring, 4 kilos of fried, and then tick that off. So when you get there, it's usually a lot of Jamaican food cooked at everybody different yard. It really makes you feel at home. It's probably the nicest gathering for the year. Remind me kind of like Christmas, but without your family,
Yeah, definitely. That sounds like something I'd love to attend, meet up everybody. But are you, let me pose a question to you first. Are you open to being some sort of a part of like a mentorship group that will, assist other young pilots or aviation professionals, assisting their development, in moving forward? Is that something that you're open to? Because I know persons like yourself and others are filled with with a lot of knowledge that can be passed on. It's and of course you have been through it for many years, and you're in it now. So you'll be one of the best avenues to actually help to develop young professionals. Is that something that you'll be open to?
Anybody who wants any information, anybody who wants to talk, anybody that wants my opinion or advice, I'm available. Just put them on to me, or let me know who they are, give me their contact information, and we can chat. I can help them in whatever way I can, I will.
Definitely. All right, well, I think whenever this clears up, I'm going to try my best to come and meet up with a lot of persons like yourself, a lot of Jamaicans, whoever we can reach out to and meet up with, just to kind of have a social meeting, well, depending on how allowed that is based on what's going on with the pandemic. But it would be a good thing to pool everybody or as much people as we can on board to provide the type of mentorship to persons coming up behind. I mean, there's not, the reality of the situation is that there's not much going on in Jamaica, and we as a club, we are going to try our best to do something about that, especially with the general aviation community. However, many of our flight students and pilots have gone overseas as a means of trying to grasp the opportunity over there. But for those who are still Jamaican citizens, don't have a green card, don't have citizenship elsewhere, once they go to school, fly, and then they go the most common route now, which is become a flight instructor. After 2 years that they're allowed to stay, then that's it. They may have the 1,500 hours, but what's next? And even if they do get the opportunity to work, I think it's very important that even as a working pilot, having that type of mentorship with another senior pilot, somebody who has done it before them, is still good to have. I remember when I started flying or doing certain flights, like international flights. My first international flight in a Cessna 182, actually behind the controls. I went to my instructor and I said, listen, I'm going to do this flight, but I've never really had that crew resource management. I'm not trained in CRM. I've seen this guy a few times, flown with him a few times, but never for 5 hours straight. What should I do? How would that cockpit working relationship go? What are some tips that you should give me? Should I say, okay, can I work the radios in the flight, or would you want to do this leg of the flight, or stuff like that? So the mentorship is a good thing, whether they are a pilot already or leading up to becoming a pilot. So it's something that we're looking to bring for persons to benefit from. So it would be good to have persons like Richie, yourself, Captain Morris as well, especially for those who want to venture to the Middle East. Everybody has the Middle East as the place to be, if not Asia as well. So that's something we're looking into developing in the near future. And of course, just putting it out there to see if you'll be willing and able to participate.
Count me in.
I'm sorry?
Count me in. I said, count me in. I'm all for it.
Okay.
Ready to roll.
Great. All right. So I wanted to let's see if we can open up to questions that anybody may have for Captain Sutherland. You can post them below. But in the meanwhile, while you're posting your questions below, there is a few questions that I had from somebody. The first question would be, let's see, the potential. Well, what is the potential like for pilots from the Western world to fly with Etihad? I mean, I think we both know the potential is there, but I don't know if you wanted to provide any more insights on that.
No, when they're hiring pilots out over in the Middle East, they're really not concerned where you're from. As an assessor, what I will tell you is that there are certain, when you have a influx, massive amount of applicants, you will sometimes look at the background at certain airlines, and you'll prioritize them over others based on past experience with certain carriers. Like here at Etihad, Air Jamaica has a very good reputation, our former Air Jamaica, Malaysian, Sri Lanka. So you find that when they're sifting through, there are certain countries and certain airlines that will, put you a little higher up if there's an abundance of applications. But working outside of Europe and North America, most countries will accept you regardless of nationality.
Okay. Somebody asked, is age a factor when hiring?
Yes, but not a significant one. Most airlines, when you look, they won't hire first officers, I think, over 55. and they won't hire captains, depending on the airline, over 50, 60, 63, depending on the airline. But once you're under 55, usually it's not a big issue. Having said that, that's just what they publish. I think if they have a choice of a 30-year-old first officer and a 54-year-old first officer with similar qualifications, they probably would look at the 30-year-old guy a little bit closer.
Definitely. Definitely. Another person had asked, what do you think about the new 777X and the possibility of flying in the aircraft?
I look forward to it. The US has a lot of experience manufacturing airplanes with folding wings, so they should be able to get that done correctly. It should be a good machine. With what's going on in the industry, I don't think the demand is going to be as high as probably first anticipated, at least not for the next few years, because, you know, the downturn, the 350 and the 787, the larger ones, the 350 1000 and the 78-9, I think is, or -10. Those both seat in two-class configuration, somewhere, you know, 300 and many passengers. And I don't think there are that many routes around right now that would probably, you know, with the downturn, the 380 is under pressure. But I think, given time, I think it will be okay. I personally don't think the big one will sell as well as the 777-300ER. But time will tell. I mean, people thought the 380 would have sold well. People thought the 78 would have sold well. One did, one didn't. So we'll see. But I look forward to it.
All right. Another question was, how does one get into Etihad? I mean, we did touch on that, how you actually got into Etihad. But as far as we know, or what was explained, you'd have to visit the airline's website. They have a career section, and you'll go there. I believe they break it down into pilot, cabin crew, maintenance, IT, you know, different segments. So of course, you click on pilots and see if there are any openings, and then if there is an opening and you apply, of course they'll reach out to you, let you know what the process is. I'm sure applying includes sending in your CV. So that's another important thing, as Jason Morris had commented in the chat and said that always keep your resume, for those who are pilots, always keep your resumes up to date and up to a certain standard. If you can research modern ways on how to update your CVs, especially the CVs of pilots that what pilots use, it's very important to keep them up to date. But once you get the call, you follow the process, and you know, of course, you'll be looked at accordingly, of course, with everybody else. And if you're a suitable candidate, then you move on to the next stage and the next stage until you get to the final stage, which leads you into the aircraft. I think that's the best way I can explain it. If there's any additions or corrections, Captain, please.
No, it's the only way is via the website. Most of the big carriers now, it doesn't matter if you give me a resume, the resume means nothing. The resume has to be uploaded into the airline's career website. That's the only way. You know, I mean, the only thing that can be done entering an airline is if you know someone who has been in the airline. The most they can go to recruitment and say, hey, my friend, you know, Sam has applied. He's a great guy. I've worked with him and so on. And then they can look at your resume and maybe they can put it at the top of the pile. But after that, it's up to you. All we can do is a good word to get you a phone call, and then after that, it will be up to you.
That's exactly what I wanted to tell them. I like that example. So when I do send in my application, that's exactly what I want you to go to them and say, you know, Sam is a great guy, great pilot, a great asset to the company. Let's pull him in.
We can do that. We can do that, but that's where it stops. And,
you see, guys, that's how networking goes.
And in fairness, it's the same thing with command upgrades. A lot of us, myself included, I won't do an interview or do an upgrade assessment for somebody that I know well, because I don't want to put myself in that situation where I either feel like I have to compromise my standards because it's my friend,
I
or
understand.
the
I
person
understand.
don't get through and it mash up the friendship because I'm me feeling. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, a lot of us tend to, you know, not want to be the ones to do it.
definitely. Somebody asked if Etihad has a helicopter fleet. I doubt it, but I mean, you're there.
No,
Do they have a helicopter fleet? No, I doubt it.
no.
Um,
The only thing that we have that's fun. We have a couple of extra airplanes at the flying school to
really?
teach, yeah, to teach spins and so on and unusual
Wow.
attitudes. So yeah,
Okay.
that's about it.
And have you done spins and stuff like that in that aircraft or no?
No, never been in one. Never been in one.
Do
I
you
think I
plan to
get
do?
in. No, I think I get in old and unadventurous. I think my next thing is go do a seaplane rating or something like that. You know, something
Not bad.
that stays right up.
All right, so the next question was, what are your thoughts on the early retirement of the A380?
It it didn't work. It was, I mean, before it was manufactured, as I said, there was a big debate whether you need larger airplanes to connect the huge airports because there are limited
Okay.
slots and so on. But
Mm-hmm.
it didn't work. I don't think there were enough of those large airports that needed 500 plus people coming in at once. If you look at the
Okay.
world 380 fleet, if Emirates didn't buy the 380, I think they have 100 and something of them are close to 100.
Wow, that's a
It
lot.
probably would have been a massive failure.
Really? Okay.
It just wasn't the right airplane. I mean, when the 747 came out, it had no competition from anything at all because the largest airplane around before the 747 came out, I think, was between the 707 and the DC-8, which was both single-aisle airplanes. So
Okay.
if you wanted to fly far, it could go the furthest. And if you wanted to carry a lot
Okay.
of people, it was really the only airplane that could carry a lot of people. But no, the
Okay.
380 came out in normal configuration, 500 and something people,
Mm-hmm.
burning a lot of gas, high operating costs. And you can, you know, send two 787s, sipping fuel that will
Mm-hmm.
have, you know, close to 300 passengers each. And you can be more flexible with your schedule and so on. So I just think
Okay.
it came at the wrong time. My feeling is that Airbus, they made the first wide body twin, the A300, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what the reasoning was behind it. It was because
Mm-hmm.
of the ETOPS issues, and you know, it couldn't do the same as back then the DC-10, 10,
Okay.
11,
Yeah.
747. So they went
Yeah.
4 engines, and I think had they stuck with the wide body twin model, I
Mm-hmm.
think it may have been a good thing. But hey, you can always look back and see these things. You know, when you're looking forward, sometimes the glasses are very foggy.
Yeah. Okay. Would you, person says, would Captain Sutherland fly helicopters again? I'm sure you would.
I would love to.
Yeah,
um,
I'm sure you
the,
would.
the, I think the funny thing is when you join the JDF to fly, a lot of guys say, "Oh, you know, I want to fly airplanes, I want to fly airlines," and a lot of people, once you get into flying school and you start flying helicopters, you say,
Mm-hmm.
I am good. I want to fly helicopters for the rest of my life."
Mm-hmm.
One of the challenges with helicopters, though, is that there are not very many well-paying jobs that allow you to live in a nice place. In other words, you can
Okay.
get a job where you earn a fortune, but you're working up
Mm-hmm.
north in Canada. Or you're flying to an oil rig somewhere, and all you're doing is flying from one oil rig to another, which is
So
not
another, yeah,
exciting.
yeah.
So good, interesting, well-paying helicopter jobs are few and far between. And if you find one, chances are the guys who are there when somebody leaves, they're going to phone a friend.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the airlines generally they generally give you a nicer lifestyle.
Okay. Speaking of lifestyle, the next question by DJ Kenny. I think that's Kenrick. He was asking, what's the pay like for entry-level first officers at Etihad, if you know?
Okay. Give him a WhatsApp and we can have a chat. I don't know if they take kindly to broadcasting this on social media.
That's fine. All right, so the next question is, when was the last time you flew a helicopter or any general aviation aircraft? That's by Brittany, the Pink Aviatrix.
Pink Aviatrix, my last flight in a helicopter was in September 2005. The month when I left the Air Wing Reserves and came to the UAE. Okay. General aviation airplane, I can't remember. Probably when I did my ATPL. Wow.
Yeah,
that could be it. No, yeah, no, we did the ATPL. No, the ATPL went back up to, I think it was 1-800 all ATPs. It wasn't like how it is now. Again, Jason and I, as it's been for many things in our life, we rocked up there, we paid our money, rocked up there in the morning, signed up, sat in front of a computer all day doing questions, answers, and explanations. We did the written exam the following morning, flew twice that day, and did the check ride the following day. So in 3 days, we got in, got out with an ATPL in our hands.
Dedication, commitment.
Well, you just buck down and just do it.
Yeah.
But I miss it. I'd like to fly one.
You'd like to get back to it.
Oh yes.
When was the last time you've been to Jamaica?
February.
Of this, okay. Okay.
Yes.
Hopefully by the time you get to come back, we can look into getting you and Richie, more than likely Richie will go back, and Jason all back into a general aviation aircraft, doing some flying, and then we record it and show the world that, the big 777. Yeah. Another question, is 40 too late to get a CPL and join the airlines?
No. Okay. Richie's probably a good person to talk to. Richie, I think, did his at 36. At 36. I think.
Yeah, man.
There are going to be challenges, and if you run into a downturn in the aviation industry, like at any age, it could make it more difficult. But I've always said, anything you want to do in life as a career, look ahead and see how much time do you have left. If you get a CPL at 40, you have 25 years of eligibility to fly internationally with an airline before you have to retire. However, especially if you're starting a bit later, I would say think about other parts of aviation, because the airline, sometimes they don't hire for long periods of time, and then you have a lot of people wanting jobs. So think about whether you'd be happy instructing, flying corporate, flying turboprops. Don't make it your be-all and end-all, and if you don't get it, you're going to be a miserable person for the rest of your days. But go for it. Be aware that, time may not be on your side depending on what's happening in the industry.
Yeah, and it was something I mentioned in a club meeting that we had yesterday. We had our first club meeting online. Usually we have it in-house, or whether at the high schools or at the UCC University in Kingston. But we were online and we were discussing that one of the best things to do is, if for those who have a passion for aviation, but the finances, of course, is an issue for many, is to still try and get a job maybe as a ground handler or customer service, or something at the airport that keeps you in the environment and keeps you within the network. Because when you're at the airport, you're going to be seeing the pilots, some who you'll become friends with and can talk to, give you great advice. A part of that network as well is cabin crew or the mechanics, whichever field that you want to get into at aviation is all converging at the airport. The only persons who probably are not converging at the airport is the aerospace engineers, but they too have to travel, and they travel via an airport. They may just get talking with somebody one day and they tell you their aviation background, and you build a network so on and so forth. So I encourage persons that if you want to become a pilot, you don't have the money right away, but it's your passion. If you can, get a job in the aviation environment just the same. Keep within the network. It's a foot in. You have experience in the industry while earning a living, which you're able to save and kind of prepare yourself to pursue the profession in aviation that you truly want. Whether it's a pilot or a mechanic or an engineer, so on and so forth.
I've actually come across quite a few guys since I've been here who were engineers before, and they worked as engineers to earn money to go to flying school. And there are two guys who were with Air Jamaica. One who's currently here with me right now, who were air traffic controllers in Jamaica, and then went to fly after. So you're
Okay.
quite right. And of course, being in the environment probably helps keep you motivated, and at least you're
Exactly.
in the environment you want to be in. Maybe not doing the job that's your first
Exactly
love.
what you want to do, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think even, I don't know if you know Captain Lisa Elliott, I think that's exactly what she did. She was a cabin crew member with Air
Yeah.
Jamaica or CAL, whichever it was, and then she, transitioned to the cockpit. But I think we have 20 seconds remaining, but we're going to continue the last segment with the questions and answers. So we're going to end this live again and then come back and we finish off with the questions. All right?
Okay. See you in a bit.
All right. See you in a bit. All right, so we're back on the live. This is our third segment, and we're going to be doing or continuing the questions and answers with Captain Martin Sutherland. So those who have any questions can post them in the chat, and we will have them to the best of our ability. So we're just waiting for Captain to join us again. All right, he should be connecting soon. Almost there, still connecting. What you guys think about the shirt? Let me know. Also the hats, as I was telling you guys earlier, can be done in different colors if you're interested in getting. Yeah, this is a white shirt to go with a white hat. All right, Captain says to add him again. Let me try. One second. I'm not seeing you, Captain. Let me try. Go live. All right, welcome back, Cap.
Yeah, man.
All right, guys. So we were having questions for Captain Sutherland. If anybody have any questions, feel free to ask, and we'll get them answered as best as possible. So for those who even joined late, Captain Sutherland is a Jamaican. He's in the United Arab Emirates in Abu Dhabi, flying with Etihad Airways. His flying experience involves helicopters, Airbus A320s, 21s, 330s, 340s. Also, now currently have Boeing 777 Captain, also a type rating instructor, type rating examiner, has a wealth of knowledge and experience in the industry. So for those who are pilots or or becoming pilots or just general aviation professionals, feel free to ask whatever questions you may have. He's one of the best persons to answer those questions. So go ahead, you can post them in the comments. We'll see them live. Trying to see if there were any other questions that were posted for you, Captain, so that I don't miss out.
While we're waiting for the questions, a little story that Bonnie, my wife, just reminded me about. I remember going with a helicopter when I was in JDF down to do a career talk at St. George's. And when it was done, there was a schoolers who was there, and he was asking questions and asking questions and asking questions. Okay. And I went back the following year to do the same thing again. Same schoolers was there again, asking questions, asking questions. Well, that schoolers has been a captain at Emirates now for about 5 years.
Are you serious? How long ago was this?
This would have been in the 90s. He may have been a captain for longer than 5, but this was in the 90s. Yeah, and he was just keen, wanted to fly, and he pursued his dream, and yeah, there he is.
Wow, that's amazing. So guys, if you want to follow the same path, you have to ask all the questions.
Look like they're in the coming.
There's one that says, what was your least favorite aircraft to fly and why, if there is any?
Least favorite helicopter was the AS355N, Eurocopter twin engine Ecurel. Why? Because it had some serious issues with, it wasn't a fuel control unit, it was a high pressure fuel pump that had a brain in it. And we had 13 of those pack up before the fleet had 500 hours on each engine in a fleet of 4 helicopters. It just was not the greatest machine. As far as airplanes go, least favorite airplane to fly. As far as jets go, I like all of them. There's no jet I've flown that I dislike. 3500 is my favorite because it has great performance and it's nice and heavy. The 600 is a bit more stable, but the 500 perform better. And least favorite airplane to fly. I don't know, man. I really did.
Probably a Cessna 172 or something like that.
From the beat skipper that cruised that must say 90 miles an hour, not 90 miles. It was slower than the Cessna 50, but it was spacious. I don't know.
Jason says the Islander.
The Islander was noisy and so on. But maybe because I was doing mostly short sectors, I enjoyed it also. It was the easiest airplane to land once the runway was wet. Because the tires are relatively, the inflation they're not inflated to a very high pressure, so they're fairly soft because it's designed to land on unprepared strips. When you land on a dry runway, they tend to just grip. When the runway is wet, they just roll on. But yeah, I liked it, but if I had to choose one, maybe that's the one I'd choose. It or the Shorts 360, because the Shorts was just big and slow. But as a passenger, the Shorts was wonderful because it had a lot of space. But yeah, possibly the Shorts.
DJ Kenny again asked, do you think you could fly a helicopter now from memory since it's been a while?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Never leaves you, eh?
I will. And Jason flew one last year, and he said he was able to hover it. If him can do it, we can do it too. So, yeah.
Okay.
And it's And it depends on the helicopter. I mean, the larger ones are a lot more stable. And he flew, I think it was a
Stable,
Robinson 44, which is not very stable. So, yeah, I guess it's like if
Well,
you drive a car with a standard car for the first time in a long while. Might be a little bit
yeah.
jerky the first time you out the clutch, but it comes back.
But I don't think any helicopter is stable. The first time I flew a helicopter, and it's not like in an airplane where I just pitch up and it does its thing and set the power and whatever. The helicopter, every single thing is moving. My hands are moving, my feet are moving, the collective is moving, and my brain is moving twice as fast to process all of those things that's happening to try and get everything right. And the helicopter is just, on a three-dimensional, what you call coffee mixing type of thing. So, but I don't know if I should say the helicopter is a stable aircraft at all. Nice to fly though.
Well, so
it's not a.
Some of them have auto hover and all those things, So yeah, some of them will they'll do the flying for you.
Yeah. All right. So Anomaly says, don't know if I asked earlier, but how was the transition from military to civil aviation?
It wasn't difficult. Because we get trained in the military on helicopters and fixed wing airplanes. The difference was that all you did was fly. In the military, you had other duties to do. As flight commander, maybe you're tweaking a lesson plan, maybe you're rewriting an exam, maybe you're having some stuff to do your soldiers. Yes, maybe some disciplinary issues. You could be a part of a court martial. You could be part of a selection board selecting new officers. So there are other things. When you start flying and you go to an airline for the first time, or working with helitours, when I was doing a little part-time work, you kind of just rock up there, you fly, you're done, sign the airplane in, and you go on home, and that's it. So it's actually, in some respects, easier. Than when you're in the military and you have all these different tasks to do.
Okay. If money, Jam Aviator 1987, if money was no factor, what aircraft would you buy and why as a personal, family airplane?
Oh boy.
Sure, it would be probably a Bell 407 or so.
Yeah,
maybe a Bell 407.
It probably would be a I have been out of it for a while, knowing what helicopters are the best on the market. And because most of my experience is in Bells, it probably would be maybe a 429, something with a couple of engines.
429, okay. Which is JDF Airwing now has.
Yes. Eurocopter may have something that may be better, I don't know, but my background is Bell. And even though I've kind of lost touch with what's the latest and greatest on the market, but it probably would be something like that. If it was an airplane, if it was something with props, it probably would be something that is fast. One of those Pilatus type things. Okay. No, man, something with a turbine.
Something with a turbine.
Yep. And of course, if it was a jet, it would be something that can carry friends and family, something with a decent sized cabin. Nothing as large as a Global Express, because that's going to limit where you can go to. Something Challenger size, something that you can carry 10 or 12 of your friends and go somewhere, but you can land at most airports.
Okay. Even a King Air, as Richie was saying, a King Air is a decent aircraft as well.
Yeah. So Jay said TBM 950, Pink Aviatrix, Pilatus, she's quite happy about that. Yeah, man. Anything like that.
Even though the Pilatus is a single engine ops, a lot of people are not really up to the single. Even though we have a Pilatus in Jamaica here as well. Flies pretty nice. That's the second airplane that I've gotten turbine time on, and it flies pretty good. Pretty quick as well.
Yeah. It also depends on where you're living. If you're living in an area where like say you're down somewhere in Florida where you have all of this flat land and so on. I'm really not concerned if it's one engine or two engines. If you're living in somewhere mountainous, not that your engine is going to quit, but fine, as you get older, you get a little bit more cautious. You know, you don't feel invincible the way you were when you were 23 years old flying a jet ranger in a pitch black of night to pick up a sick person somewhere near cockpit country in Albert Town. You know.
Yeah, gotcha. Any more questions for Captain, guys? I don't think I missed anything. When last have you actually seen
early on about
Jason?
The difference between a three.
No, go ahead, Captain. I stepped on you.
Somebody had asked about the similarity or difference between the 320 and the 340 cockpit. They're very similar. Of course, the 340 has 4 engines, 320 has 2. But if you have been flying one, you could, with somebody who's flying the other, they could probably sit you in there and get you started, and you could probably take it off and land it quite easily, knowing what the other one is like, having flown the previous one. They're very, very similar in the procedures, where the switches are. The automation is identical.
Okay. All right. Lisa
easy
Mohammed.
to adapt to a new culture. Lisa, my cousin in Trinidad. How are you doing? No, it wasn't very difficult. I think you came in a little bit late because the majority of the people living here are from elsewhere. 80% of the population are not from the UAE, and people tend to be very helpful when new people arrive here, helping you to settle in and so on. It wasn't very difficult to adapt to the new culture. Of course, you know, you miss home, you miss things about home, but settling in wasn't too hard.
Okay. And you said that's your cousin in Trinidad, Lisa Mohammed.
Yeah, she probably knows Khalil quite well also, who is here somewhere, Khalil the photographer. If anybody needs any aviation photos done, please call Khalil. He is he's one of the 2 best photographers that I know in life.
Okay. Somebody asked, Martin, do you think you could live full-time in JA again?
88. I don't know. It's something that Bonnie and I have spoken about. And it's when you live somewhere with all the, let's say, the comforts of first world, and then in the back of my mind, I know it has happened a few times. But when people look, and Jamaica is a small place, and I love it to death, and it's still my favorite place in the world, and I don't feel afraid when I go home. I feel quite comfortable. You wonder if coming from the Middle East that you may not have the odd person who will be saying, oh, Middle East working must be wealthy, and you become a target. I don't know, yes or no. Some days I say yes, some days I say no. So I'm kind of undecided, not sure.
Okay. I know Richie came back to fly with Fly Jamaica, enjoyed it while it lasted. I'm sure he was glad to be home, as he had shared with us. He was happy to be home, but unfortunately things didn't work out. But who knows? Maybe helicopter charters may pick up in Jamaica, and then we need to give you a phone call to man one of the aircrafts in the fleet. Who knows?
Good retirement job.
Yeah, as Lisa said, you could retire in JA.
That could be a good retirement job.
Any more questions, guys, for Captain Sutherland? And it's only a pity with this pandemic, because if it weren't for the pandemic, when you guys came back home, we could have this, a link up and have some beers and some food and stuff like that. Somebody asked, what hobbies does Captain Sutherland have? Good question.
You know?
Golf.
All right. Let me backtrack first so you don't have me down as the ultimate nerd. In school, I played sunlight cricket for 1, 2,
Okay.
3, for 4 years. I was the captain of the sunlight team. I played Manning Cup. Played
You
cricket in the
did.
JDF. Didn't play much football in the JDF. Yeah.
Okay.
But now my sports, I have resorted to golf. So all I play now, apart from the occasional run or riding my bicycle or going to the gym, that's it. Golf.
Okay.
Who said Nyamin?
And
Of
somebody
course,
said
Nyamin
Nyaming.
involved.
Oh,
Yeah.
what's the
And
adjustment
Chief
like in
Sliman
terms of the
Trim, she can.
food? Sorry, I was just saying in terms of the food in the
Here,
Middle East. Well,
you can, because so many cultures are around, you can find the food here is very varied. We cook a lot at home. You know, the usual the Jamaican things that don't need Jamaican ingredients. In other words, if you're going to make ackee, you can't find ackee unless you just come from Jamaica and you had 2 tin in your bag. You know, like rundown, you can't find salt mackerel here, but you can find smoked mackerel, and it tastes pretty
okay.
good. You know, and we bring our curry. Bonnie's mom lives down in near Bushy Park side. She get the
Okay.
real curry from the ladies there. So when we make our curry goat here is Jamaican curry goat. We make stew peas.
Okay.
Many times it don't have any pigtail because pigtail not so easy to find. Oxtail, and of course every now and again you
Yeah.
have to eat a bully beef. You know how it go.
Yeah. Definitely. Hear that, people? Big Captain still eating
Khalil
bully beef.
asking about my photography. No, Khalil. and saltfish fritters, stamp and go. No, Khalil, my camera is gathering dust. I really need to start taking some photos.
Yeah, man, especially when you start, I agree with Khalil on that, especially when you start flying. I'm sure a lot of people love to see what you see, you know. I guess flying into different time zones, seeing the sunrise, seeing the sunset from the air, seeing the borders, the actual borders of the country, or if you fly over Egypt and see the pyramids from 30 plus thousand feet, you know, that type of stuff. I'm sure a lot of people would want to see if you ever get the chance to take some pictures when you're flying.
When I first came here, I used to travel with my camera all the time, and I took a lot of photos the first maybe 2 years I was here. And
Okay.
somewhere along the line, I started taking fewer and fewer, started leaving the camera at home. Then I bought a small one to travel with, and it just stayed in the bag. And I just kind of lost the vibes along the way somewhere.
Okay.
But when I
Well,
come to
that's fine.
Jamaica,
If you ever
Khalil,
should pick it up.
me out.
As he
Yes.
said earlier, when we do take you flying, when you come home, he'll be the one to take the pictures. Absolutely fine. That's a good
Yes.
idea.
Yes.
Um, what's this? Marguerite, thank you very much. Thank you for tuning into the interview. She was just complimenting to say it was a great interview. Can you hear me?
Hi, Marina. No, I don't own a drone. I am one of these people that,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
lots of pilots, they have their simulators and so on. And yeah, hearing you fine. You hearing me?
Yeah, man, I'm hearing you fine as well.
Everybody hearing me? Yeah. I like airplanes and helicopters. I like flying. Okay, but I really, drones, remote control things and so on, they just don't appeal to me. Friend in Dubai has a helicopter simulator with the VR goggles, and that I enjoyed when I went up there, and I'll do that again. But that's the
Okay.
only kind of remote control thing I've ever done that I figure I'd do over and over.
Okay.
What do I fly?
There's
Boeing 777 at the moment.
a friend of mine, Jason Spike. He's asking, where was this question? Oh, he's asking between now and then, how would you compare the ease of getting into the airline?
Now and then?
Yeah, between now and then.
Then, if you had your ratings, it was quite easy. In 2005, when we went, it was quite easy because the airlines needed a lot of people. To give you an idea, Etihad grew, as I said earlier on, from when we arrived there, and they had about 6, 7, 8 airplanes. In the 2nd of October 2005, and by 2010 they had 50. So it was a case where recruitment was happening every single weekend of the month, and the groups were between 10 and 30 people every single weekend for possibly 2 years we were interviewing. But that's the way aviation is. I mean, just before this COVID thing, the UPS and so on, they had been hiring steadily. You know, a lot of the big airlines in the US had been hiring steadily. So it's cyclical, and they will start hiring again. And unfortunately, at some point, it's going to take a dip again. And that's the way the industry is.
Yeah, that's true. There's always, I've noticed that as well, that there's always a dip, but then it grows again, then there's a dip again, you know, it's all over the place, unfortunately. And there's no time frame that happens. It just happens, you deal with it for whatever reason, it happens, you deal with it. Go ahead, Cap.
Yeah. If you look at Air Jamaica, at one point Air Jamaica had between 7 airplanes for many years. And you had guys who joined Air Jamaica as second officers, flight engineers, and they did that job for 8, 10, 12 years. Then they became first officers for 4, 5, 6 years, and then became captains. Had you joined Air Jamaica in the early days, at one point, Air Jamaica had airplanes flying from Jamaica, stopping in Uganda to pick up a navigator, DC-8, and then over to London or Frankfurt. And every single pilot on that airplane was under 30 years old. And that's the way aviation is. And then when I joined Air Jamaica, had I stayed at Air Jamaica, I would have been upgraded 6 years after joining Air Jamaica to captain.
Okay.
So, and it's not necessarily that I'm any better than the other guys, just that opportunities were there. The airline went from 7 or 8 or 9 airplanes to 21 a few years.
Okay. Not bad at all.
16-year-old starting an aviation career, what flight school would you recommend? Pepper 101, I would say the better person to ask that question to would be Sam. He probably knows more about flying schools and what are the better options than I would. I've been over here for a long time and been out of the school system. But I'm sure Jamaica, the Aviation Club, and Sam, those guys will be able to give you some good advice.
Well, I mean, there are flight schools in Jamaica, but unfortunately, the Caribbean Aviation Training Center, which is a prominent flight school that a lot of pilots have trained with, especially after wings. They're not operational currently, but they're in the rebuilding phase to, you know, get back up and running. But right now, the best option, if you're really interested in getting into the flying right away, is to go overseas. There are flight schools that we're affiliated with, which is the Two-Fly Airborne Academy in Merritt Island. There's also Florida Tech, which has their flight department in Melbourne, Florida. And there's also Epic Flight Academy in New Smyrna Beach. All are 3 great schools. The prices is pretty similar. They all have very good airplanes, very good infrastructure, and are credible. So whichever is the best fit for you, then definitely go overseas. Right now is the best option to go overseas and do your training. The other question by Javel Johnson. After this pandemic, what do you think aviation will be like for both young pilots and the current pilots in the industry in relation to jobs?
It will rebound at some point. I personally don't think that there are going to be very many jobs available until 2022, but that is just my best guess. Because a lot of airlines, I think, are going to be consolidating. They're going to be getting loans and being bailed out by governments and so on. The traveling public, I don't think a lot of people will be willing to travel even if flights are open. I think the summer is probably going to be the slowest summer on record, because people, even if you still have your job and you still have money, a lot of people say, I'm not going on no plane, go sit down, pace up beside that person beside me who might be coughing or whatever. Plus, wherever you're going to, I think a lot of people are going to stay put. And I think it's going to continue for quite a while. Even if there's a vaccine, even if there's an efficient treatment, all those things are going to take a long time to be available in all countries. So I don't think the market for pilot jobs is going to be good until the earliest, sometime in 2022. Current pilots, if you have a job, it's probably not the time to try and move anywhere because you probably can't. So, you know, that's it. That's my best guess.
And I mean, even looking on a more positive side to that, as much as things may not pick up until 2022, for those who are looking to become pilots, it's a good time to prepare. It's a good time to get the requirements to get to the airlines. It's the best time to try and build some flight time. You know, it's just pretty much the best time to, as best as possible, put yourself in the position that when the opportunity comes, you're able to, you know, just grasp it and you know, start your flying career. It may not be with a major airline in the Middle East, but at least you're flying, you know. So it's a good time to kind of just prepare yourself as best as possible so that when things pick up back again, you're able to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented, you know.
Yeah, not about it. The only thing I would say is if you are fortunate enough to have all the money to do everything now, and you do everything, say, in 6 months, you may find where you've completed all your flying and there are no jobs available. But if you're like most people where, you know, the money comes in bit by bit and it's going to take you a year or 2 years to do your PPL, do your CPL, instrument rating, build some time and so on, then yeah, just keep on trucking along and it will turn around at some point. Always has, and the world can't survive without efficient air travel.
Definitely. Question for you, Captain. Does Etihad have a corporate department?
Somebody said charter and corporate started picking up. That's true. I saw something in the news just the other day. But yeah. No,
I think there's a
we
delay.
occasionally do charters, but no, we don't have a corporate department.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Yeah. No, we do charters, but not corporate. We don't have a corporate.
Okay. Is there any other advice or feedback that you feel is or has some benefit to the viewers?
What I've said before, if you want to fly, go for it. Do not make age be an issue. Always look ahead, see how many years you have left to fly, not how many years you have behind you. And
Okay.
remember also, if you like aviation and you want to be involved in aviation, but you're not someone saying, "Oh, you know, I'm not sure if I really want to be a pilot," but you like, remember there are other branches involved in aviation: air traffic control,
Absolutely.
engineers, dispatchers. So if you like the industry, but you don't think flying is for you, take a look around and see what else there is in the industry. There are lots of very fulfilling careers in aviation that are not in the cockpit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Captain. All right, so we're just going to open up to a few more
Yeah, I think we're having a
questions.
bad delay.
Yeah, there's a slight delay, but we're just going to open up to a few more questions before we let you go, Captain. So if anyone has any more questions, you can post them quickly and we'll get them answered before we let the captain go. The captain has been with us for approximately 2.5 hours, which we greatly appreciate your time, Captain, to be with us again. Let me say before the rest of the questions come in. I appreciate you being here, talking to us, sharing your experience and insight and advice, and you know all the information that I'm sure is beneficial to not just me as a pilot myself, but to those listening. And you know it has been very interactive, and I'm sure a lot of persons appreciate you just being here talking to us. So thank you in advance again for being here.
Yeah, man. Thanks very much, Sam. And as I say, you know, what you're doing is fantastic because a lot of people in aviation or want to get involved in aviation, they have no idea where to turn, what to do, where to look, especially since there are no schools operating in Jamaica right now. You know, at least they know where they can turn to get some advice at the beginning stages of their career, their search or their what you call their journey to try and make it into a career.
Definitely, definitely. All right. Well, Captain, I'm not seeing anybody post any more questions, so we're gonna let you go. But again, thank you for joining us. It was fun. It was a very good interview, and as I said, we're gonna be communicating a lot more to open up the network for the the other upcoming professionals who are looking for a mentor or mentorship, so that they too can become very good professionals in the industry, especially for those who want to branch out into the Mid East, where there's a lot more activity than there is where we are now. So thank you again, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, man. Thanks very much, Sam. It was really a nice chat. I enjoyed it, and we will touch base, and I will see you when I come to Jamaica. Yeah, you owe me a circuit.
Most definitely, Cap. I owe you one. All right. We'll talk soon. Take care and stay safe as usual.
All right. Yeah, man.
All right, Cap. Take care,
You
guys.
too. Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.